Dear Teaching Like Ted Lasso listener, it's the end of July and you're probably expecting a new episode. Believe us, we certainly were. Our goal is a new episode each month, but this month certain circumstances got in the way, including the live show we did at the Michigan Council of Teachers of Mathematics conference on July 20th. Still, we didn't want to leave you without something in your TLTL feed. So here's a little taste of the special guest we interviewed for the live episode, Ella Ben-Ur. And if you make it to the end of this feature, there are a couple of surprises. Without further ado, here's part of our discussion with Ella on her tool, the Innovator's Compass.
Literally, it says on top, 5 ways we move forward in any challenge, big or small. With and for everyone involved, we explore new possibilities in these 5 questions. It's a circle in the center, and it's red, and it has 2 people in it with little hearts in them. The question there is who's involved, or are people in any situation? And then there's this compass, and we go down to the lower left, and that brings us down to details. It's the bottom part of the compass, what's happening in the past and present, and we're looking to just see what's happening and why right now, right? Like just like someone came to you with a feeling down about something, you'd see them as a person first, and then you'd probably say, hey, what's happening? Like try to understand, what's happening and why. Gather some real observations to go on. There's 2 pictures here, like an upper picture frame and a lower picture frame. You probably try to find some upsides that are happening and maybe some, what are the downsides of what's happening? You try to understand. And then zooming up, the top of the compass is big picture. You went from details, you zoom up to big picture, find the question, what matters most? Because we can get stuck overwhelmed with all the things that are happening. And so being able to see the big picture, hey, what matters most about all of that so that I can focus? There's a star here because those are your guiding stars or your North Star or the things that you star, like on your page, right? On your to-do list, the things that matter most, or some guiding principles, like guiding stars, guiding principles for yourself. And then we go over to the top right and we find we're still big picture, but now we're moving from past and present to the future. And we're looking for the big picture of what ways, plural, are there, to do what matters most, or ideas. And there's a fluffy, blue sky cloud here because these can be fluffy, dreamy, blue sky ideas. We have to have space to do that. We can be stuck, seeing no way or only one way to do what matters. Either of those is kind of stuck, right? Because if it's like my way or the highway, that doesn't work so well. Or just kind of like meh ways, right? That we're not really excited about, that aren't really, we're not going to, get to the moon unless we shoot the stars, right? So that's that space. That's that space to dream. But we all ask that, like, okay, well, we really want to go to New York. What ways are there to do that, right? We all ask these questions. None of them are rocket science. And then we come back down to details and of the future and say, okay, well, what's the step to try, right? Like if we decide, oh, I think we're going to do the train. Well, we're not going to get on that train unless there's a who, what, when, where, how, to get on the train. It just remains an idea. So what's a step to try? And the picture here is a pile of blocks that are kind of tipping over. They go from big on the bottom to small on top, and they weren't tipping over until my then 4-year-old daughter said, well, experiments are kind of like, they don't usually work at first. Didn't that pile look like it's falling over? And I kind of cringed, which was exactly why I realized they should be falling over, because we need to get used to that. We need to be comfortable with that. And, it's the top one that's falling off. It's a little bitty one. It's no big deal, right? And, as you go, you build up and the blocks get more solid and you have bigger blocks and you'll build your way there. This is just the first step, and you'll learn from it and you'll go on. And so while they are numbered, because that is the way that most processes will have you go, the safe thing to do is see people, what's happening for them, what matters most for them before you start throwing out a bunch of ideas to change things. But they're really just 5 ways that we move forward, and we use these piecemeal all the time, right? Like, your kid start listing all the things that they want to do or they need to do, and you're like, okay, well, which one matters most to you right now? You ask these questions all the time when you get unstuck, when you move forward in powerful ways, and when we don't, we're missing something somewhere. So let's just name them. I like to say this is about being curious, getting clear, getting creative, getting courageous, and being compassionate in the middle.
I don't want to gloss over all 5 of those questions are important, and our participants will have a chance to look at all 5 of them. But I've heard you give some very good detail about how to do the experiment part. I think that would be helpful.
To me, one of the simplest ways to think about how to explore any of these things is, first of all, to use periods to unpack what you think. but then look for some exclamation points, some ahas, right? Like find new possibilities. And then the last one, but really the most exciting one, is the question mark. When in doubt, let it out. Just pop a question mark on it when you don't know, or to let thoughts come and go, right? Like being the perfect parent or teacher, if that's one of your principles, pop a question mark on it and see what it opens up for you. It's really kind of amazing. So then my prompts in the Pocket Compass are really just how to find more of those ahas. And then this cue card has 2 prompts for each of the spaces, for each of the questions. One is to find more exclamation points, more ahas, the same thing that's in the Pocket Compass. And then there's a prompt around question marks, how to find those. So this is the greatest detail. So I'm going to literally read what is on here about experiments. So experiments, what's a set to try? So the exclamation point aha tip is make it small. $1, 1 day, 1 person, or 1 part of an idea. And it's pointing to the little bitty cube, the little bitty block on the top of the stack. And now pointing to details, small with specific details. So small and specific, like who, what, when, where, how, until you'll try it. If it's not happening yet, it needs to be smaller and or more specific until it happens. Like, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh, I just did that. Look at that. How cool is that, right? So that's the aha, right, that you come to, like, oh my God, I just did that. The question mark prompt is to focus on the question marks you found above, right? So when you were like, oh, I'm actually not really sure what's happening. I don't know why he's late to school every day, question mark. Or do I have to be the perfect mom? I don't know, right? Or with ideas, right? If you let out that question, like, I could have 10,000 elephants at the birthday party, and I put a question mark on it because that's how I let it out. Now you have all these question marks that you've collected. And so the question mark tip is simply to focus on question marks that you found before and then go back and see what happens, right? So an experiment can be trying out part of an idea, but it might actually be finding out more about what's happening. Like, I'm going to go try asking, I'm going to try watching and see which days he's late and not and why, or I'm going to go ask him more about it. That can be an experiment. It doesn't have to be trying out an idea.
When I've seen you present on this, Ella, you often, when we're into that experiment piece, ask them to think about something that they can specifically do in the next week. Do you still try to do that? Do you still espouse that as you're doing that work?
Yeah, I really love, so here I say small and specific. So they have to pick a, who, what, when, where, and how. And I guess it doesn't technically have to be in the next week, but it's good if it is. I do really like the framing that I've heard of someday and Monday. So the someday is like the ideas space, right? All these ways I could possibly do this someday. And experiments is like the Monday, right? Like, so you have to pick a specific when, and no, it probably shouldn't be in 3 weeks because you're going to completely forget about it by then. Or it's too big, right? If you think that it's going to take you 3 weeks, to be able to do this thing, maybe what can you try that's smaller? That is right now. And the best is if it's in the next 24 hours, because that's when you'll remember it, or the very next thing you do.
Thanks to Ella for sharing her work. You'll hear more from her in episode 8 and in the extended cut of our discussion coming, hopefully, in August. Surprise number 1. Recently, we were fortunate to hear Joshua Davis at the benefit for UpDon, the Upper Peninsula Diabetes Outreach Network. Josh is the singer-songwriter who so graciously allows us to use his music in the podcast. And the following is a live performance of a portion of his song, The Working Man's Hymn, also known as the TLTL theme. The other surprise is our daily TEDisms calendar, which we've been creating using our Instagram page, TLTL_daily_TEDisms. You can find the month of July under highlights on our profile page or using the QR code that is available on the video version of this bonus feature. See the show notes for more details. Thanks for being a TLTL listener, and be on the lookout for episode 8, Experiments, coming soon.